so they just can watch it back later. Okay, so basically I will just keep the chat on my right side, so if you have questions, you can write anytime. It's important that you always ask if you don't know something or just are curious about something. So yeah, today we have the art of story hunting. It's actually my favorite subject, story hunting, because everyone knows like storytelling, that you try to tell like an engaging story, like National Geographic, or like Travel and Leisure, or in Netherlands we have Columbus magazine. Like everyone wants to, yeah, to tell a good story, right? But to tell a good story, I mean, you can write some fiction, of course, like an ebook, for example. But if you want to write like travel journalism, it needs to be like fact-based, right? So it needs to be real. So basically, the art of story hunting is even before you tell a story. That means it's like looking for a story or trying to put yourself like in environments, right? Maybe sometimes out of your comfort zone, so you're able to connect like with the local culture and see their challenges maybe sometimes, and then you can basically find like a story, right, that you can write about or document it with your camera, take some pictures, or even make some podcasts maybe about some challenges. Like think about like some indigenous tribes in, for example, like in South America that struggle with the environmental climate change, or maybe with people that fish too much in their river, right? Can be also like, for example, a fabric in South Africa that they are building and they want to destroy some neighborhood that was built illegally, but maybe people have already their houses there, their gardens, even like maybe a school. So sometimes, yeah, like local people have a lot of challenges. It can be from politics, it can be like natural disasters, or between people, maybe some fights, or even from animals, right? When they live still connected with the nature. So usually the skill of a travel journalist is basically to be very aware and to yeah, find those challenges, right? Because a lot of media is like interested to document it and to distribute it as well, right? And as a travel journalist, you can make an impact as well with that, because if you distribute the story, that means you can also attract more eyes on the problem, right? And hopefully also more help, like from nonprofit organizations, or maybe from people that want to donate, or people that just want to help out, right? So that's why I find like the art of story hunting is like very important. And I always call it like boots on the ground. So basically going there, taking out your hands out of the pockets, trying to, like interact with people, immerse yourself in the culture. And it doesn't matter if it's like countryside, jungle, desert, mountains, even cities, right? Because in cities you can find also many stories from like maybe some local restaurant owners that struggle like with a big restaurant that tries to outbuy them, for example, right? So there are like many stories that you can find. And that's the art of story hunting. So basically going out there, boots on the ground, and trying to find your story that's like worth publishing. And then the next step is basically you need to tell that story, right? So that you try to make it as attractive as possible by writing. You need to make it fact-based, so you need to have good resources, not just like random information, but something that's really true, right? I mean, if you write fiction, then you could come up with everything that you want, right? Because it's fiction, but yeah, travel journalists, it's like non-fiction. That means that it needs to be fact-based, right? So if you quote someone, for example, right, it needs to be true. At least you hope it's true, right? If you interview someone. So here you can see also a little bit like a step by step with the curriculum. So first we had that last time. I would dive a little bit deeper on it today, like pre-trip research. So you just need to check, where you go. Is it safe to go there as a travel journalist? So it's like logistics, right? Like every traveler has. Plus you need to prepare your story. Do you take one, two microphones? Do you take many cameras, only a GoPro, just your cell phone, or what do you take, like a team with you of four people, right? So you need to plan that ahead, right? And you can plan interviews, so instead of chasing people like down there, right? If you only have 1 week, it's better to do it 1 month ahead, right? To plan all the basically the coffee dates, right, with the people to interview them, and yeah, it makes the story hunting process so much easier because you did your research. You know the area a bit, you know the culture, the customs, the history, and you know where to find those stories. And that's the beautiful thing. Like because of your research, you will know basically where to search for those stories. Hopefully, you have also like a publication, like a travel magazine that maybe pays you to like travel, or maybe a company that you write for, right? Because you can also write like a story for like a hotel, for example, right? Because sometimes you have ecologists that do maybe something good, like for like something non-profit to help the local community, for example. So I would always recommend also with your pre-trip research, try also already to find like some publications that you can collaborate with, even work for, maybe a press trip, or connect with the local hostel or hotel if you can write a story for them and stay for free for 1 week, for example. Later, you can upsell them also like your services, right? To write every week, for example, for their website. So that's usually how I do it. I try to like, yeah, like to have already like a paid project before I go. And when you're there, you can of course like upsell also things. So that's like the pre-trip research, very important. And you can basically start from now, right? If you have a place that you want to cover a story about. Then the story hunting, right? So that's more the boots on the ground, going, exploring, trying to connect with the people, immerse yourself, right? As a travel journalist, still in an ethical way, of course. And then the third one's more the storytelling. So that's like your travel reportage, what we will talk today about it. So it's basically like your travel article. So it's like a topic, right, that you like cover a bit more deep. So it can be like, for example, making travel reportage about the Oktoberfest in Germany, like the history of the Oktoberfest, where the beer is made, maybe, right? From which breweries the beer comes, maybe the fight before the Oktoberfest that people maybe fight to who can sell the most beer, for example, right? So there must be a lot of stories behind that kind of big event. So that's basically more the writing process. So that's more the storytelling, right? So travel reportage. I will explain a bit later more what's a travel reportage because it's a bit different than like a news story. So usually you have a news story, it's usually short. You have like short news or long news. So short news can be like this date will be the Oktoberfest, this and this happens, and basically the end, right? A longer news article, it's a bit, you go a bit more deeper in it. Travel reportage, I would say you go even more deeper in it so that people take more time reading it. So it can be also like a documentary, it can be a photo collage with pictures, and of course, like travel writing. And the last step is, of course, also pitching to magazines, right? So you can sometimes also go first to find the story, create the story, later pitch. So that's also an option. Or to pitch to new magazines. So you wrote one story to one, and you can sell another story to another one, right? Don't sell like the same story to more media because that's usually not appreciated by the travel magazines or other media out there. So that's a bit what we will cover. So pre-trip research, we had that a bit, but here you can see a little bit more information about it. So yeah, basically, pre-trip research is yeah much more than planning logistics. It's not only what you pack and which time is the best to go because of the weather, for example, but it's also like reading about the culture, historical context, right? Finding your angle, your story angle. If you go to see, like, let's say in Cambodia, the one of the world wonders, like Angkor Wat, for example, then yeah, you need to know like yeah, which story angle should you take because so many people wrote about it. So maybe you can write about the tuk-tuk drivers that bring the tourists there, right? Their story, how they struggle every day to make a living for their family. So that can be very interesting, like the tuk-tuk drivers of Angkor Wat, for example. or maybe the construction workers that try to renovate it all the time and are afraid if something goes wrong that they will go into history by destroying the world wonder, right? So you can imagine it's a very delicate process, right, to renovate very historical monuments or buildings. So I always try to find like a unique story angle, because it doesn't matter if someone wrote like millions of times people wrote about the Eiffel Tower, but still you can maybe find a story about like people, for example, selling the Eiffel Towers like on the street, right? And some souvenir shops that sell maybe the Eiffel Towers, like the souvenirs. So you can still make a story related to it, but just from a different angle. Source and contact research, so that's very important. So you know your facts, you know that it's true, right? Location scouting, logistics. Also, you need to know, like, yeah, do you take a cameraman with you? You go alone? You take a GoPro, your Canon camera? You leave your laptop behind or not? Or you maybe will edit later everything and write in a cafe. And yeah, multimedia preparation. You also need to know you will shoot vertical, horizontal. You focus more on pictures or videos. You will post it on social media live when you go out there. So you need also to think about it. And of course, the pitching, right, to the magazines to do it ahead, collabs with the local accommodation, tour agencies, tourism boards, and projects, right? So that are your freelance projects that you'll work on. So that's basically the pre-trip research. Yeah, it's a very long topic. We will always go back to it because, yeah, it's very important for a travel journalist to do in-depth pre-trip research. Sometimes you can also do investigative journalism. So that goes even more deeper. So that's basically story hunting, boots on the ground, and basically investigating like a local matter that's happening to make a story about it. Okay, so that's like the pre-trip research. So yeah, I wanted to give you some examples of like story hunting. So one of the easiest examples, if you want to basically find a story even without looking, so that means like events, right? So travel events can be local conferences, um, but it can be also like cultural like events. For example, in Oaxaca, Mexico, you have Dia de Muertos. It's like the Day of the Dead. Starts usually already in October. So if you want to be on time, I would recommend that you go at least 26th of October. Yeah, even before, I would say 20 October. So you can see how the whole city prepares with decorating the city, preparing like the food, the cemetery. And basically, as a travel journalist, you can document everything on video, how people like prepare for it, interview the people, and then of course you can show like the whole event and maybe even like the cleaning after, for example, to show like what's happening after the event happened, right? So if you want to find a good story to write about, it's always magazines publish something about Dia de Muertos because it's a very unique cultural happening in Mexico. People like celebrate it like with mezcal, kind of like tequila. They dance on the graveyards. They spend time with their family, so they try to kind of memory their ancestors, but in a very optimistic way. So that's like Dia de Muertos. So you can also, like, if you write a story, you can combine it, for example, with other countries that celebrate it in a different way. In some countries, people cry a lot. Other countries, you see, like in Mexico, people celebrate. Maybe in some other countries, there's totally a different other tradition, right? So it's very interesting to see those differences. Other very interesting cultural event that's also happening is like Songkran in Thailand. Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's like a very famous movie about Mama Coco movie. Yeah, it's like from Mexico. Like the movie, you can see like kind of like I think it was a skeleton dog, and he shows a bit how Dia de Muertos looks like. I think was something about that he wanted to become like a musician and playing the mariachi bands. Those are like very popular bands in Mexico. It was very cool. I think many people can like imagine it from that movie, but it's a real happening. It happens in Oaxaca. If you ever get the chance as a travel journalist, I would say it's one of the best spots if you want to capture beautiful photography, like the cultural event, and you can write so much about it. So, and it happens every year. So every year, if you get the chance to go the end of October, then yeah, it's a very cool happening. Songkran in Thailand, so it's like the Thai New Year. It's happening actually in April. So I was lucky to celebrate it like a long time ago when I was doing an internship on the island of Koh Chang in Thailand. I was working like in a clinic there. It was like a project from school. Like I was there like 3 months on the island. So they had the Songkran. We celebrated it. And yeah, you could write also many stories of like how to prepare yourself for the Songkran. So basically, people celebrate the Thai New Year couple days, and they just throw water at each other. Only the thing is, there's also a bit a dark side from the Songkran because there are many scooter accidents. Because sometimes people drive on the scooter and they have someone that's like drunk and they throw like a bucket of water over them so they can slip, right? Or they can get scared. So there are sometimes scooter accidents. It's not recommended to go on your scooter then. Because I remember I was going with a friend on a scooter, and indeed, like people throw buckets, you get like bucket of water over you, so you lose your vision when you're on the motorbike, and yeah, it's quite intense, funny as well. But yeah, it's also a very unique story to write about, like the scooter accidents, for example. A bit less optimistic story, but still, yeah, an interesting fact about the Songkran. Or you can focus more on something very optimistic, right? Like how people prepare for it, or how foreign people celebrate it in Thailand. Other very cool cultural event is like the Inti Raymi in Peru. It's like basically like a cultural celebration of the sun from the Incas. Also very magical happening, happens like 3 kilometers above us probably, because it's at 3,300 meters, like in Cusco on the high altitude. So you need to acclimatize well. It's a big city, and basically people celebrate like the tradition of the Incas. They celebrate the sun. And yeah, it's a very colorful like happening. I haven't experienced it myself yet, but I would love to go one time and experience it. Also very important to know, for those kind of events, I would recommend try to book at least your accommodation 3 or 6 months ahead. So you know you find your accommodation, try to make some collabs with them. However, it will be difficult during event times because yeah, they want to make money basically. But yeah, maybe like if you are able to show them that you want to write an article for their hotel, for example, then they will be open to collaborate. So it's also very cultural, cool happening. Oktoberfest, like that's more one in Europe. It happens actually in Germany. So basically, people just like celebrate it in Munich. And yeah, they drink a lot of beer. It's a huge happening. A lot of people from other countries in Europe join it as well. Actually, even Netherlands celebrates it as well. Maybe not that big, but some countries also, yeah, celebrate it. In Oktoberfest, you can see that people wear a lot of like green, that kind of hats. It's very like interesting celebration. Let's actually do 20th of September into 5th of October. Here's another one. This one also I didn't see. Like I don't know how to pronounce, like Uida Voodoo Festival. It's like in Benin. So it's also like a country like in Africa, and it's like a voodoo festival. So it's very unique because the government of Benin, they basically they see like voodoo as like their one of their like kind of like religions. And people still do like sacrifices of like animals. You can go and see how people dance, and I heard it's also like a very cultural rich experience. So I heard it's very cool. I haven't seen it yet, but I would love to go one day as well. And it's like the 10th of January. So I think that could be also a very unique story. Of course, it's also cool to go to different countries and to document different like events as well, right? Here's another one, the last one. So that's the Burning Man Festival. It's in Nevada, a state in the US. So that's, I would say it's still kind of from 19 something. I'm not sure from which date it started, but it's basically like more like not, yeah, I mean, still it's like a cultural event, but a bit a later one that happened. So it's more like for people that are very into like arts, like freedom. So it started as well like that people used to go there nude, basically. If you didn't have phones back then people just danced like naked. They didn't care. They wanted to express their freedom. So it was basically something like Sziget in Hungary, a big like musical festival. People came from different parts of US and even the world just to celebrate it on the desert, and they used to ride their bicycles, build that kind of statues. It's a huge artistic event for like artists, musicians, everyone that wants to express freedom. So that's like called the Burning Man. So that's actually the 24th of August into the 1st of September in US. It's kind of like quite a new cultural event. I would call it even more like kind of a festival, music festival, but still it's a bit older. So you can also call it a cultural event. Okay, so that's a bit like some ideas, right? That you can use for story hunting. So that's just more the global main things that you can find to write a story about. But of course, I encourage you as well just to dive deeper, try to like, for example, about the Burning Man, try to like document like the people that, for example, built those statues, right? That's also a very unique story because I can imagine people built it like 6 months ahead or 1 year ahead, maybe. So it's very interesting to follow that process, right? So that can be a very unique story. So that's always nice to find those unique angles. And just totally something, maybe some events that you don't know about. Sometimes you just find something that no one found yet, right? In some culture. Maybe there's like an old indigenous culture or even like a new culture, like people that trade crypto. Maybe they have also some new traditions or new meetups that they do, right? Or specific dress codes, new upcoming urban subcultures also like for example, yeah, the digital nomads were like a big trend, like people that travel with their laptop and work remotely. Yeah, there are many like upcoming like subcultures. It's always interesting to follow that as well. So try always to like find those stories. So yeah, like yeah, imagine you found that story, right? And then you want to make a story about it. So there are many different forms of stories, right? So it can be a news story. So it's more like fact-based, like, okay, there's a happening, this and this will happen, or something happened, right? Maybe a story about someone that got lost in the jungle, right? So it's basically reporting the facts. And travel reportage, that's a bit deeper. So then you really dive deep into the topic. So people spend longer time reading it. It's more like National Geographic style, or for example, Columbus magazine. I don't know if you can see it here on the camera, but you can see that basically looks like a bit more text, a lot of pictures, and basically covering a lot of information in it as well in the text. And as you can see, the travel reportage is a journalistic form of storytelling that documents real experiences, places, people, and cultures through a mix of observation, research, and narrative. So narrative means like story, right? So you tell a story, but it's like fact-based on research or your own observation as a travel journalist. And you can capture like stories of people, their culture, of the place, right, that you visit, your real experiences. Huh? So you can also talk about your own experiences. I wrote one time like a feature story for like Columbus magazine about my own experience with the high altitude sickness. I got very bad sick when I was in Cusco. I don't know if it was a combination with COVID back then, but yeah, I was quite sick for 4 or 5 days. I wrote a story about how I tried to cure my high altitude sickness with like Sorochi pills, kind of pills that you use in the high altitude. like coca tea leaves, for example, to be able to make the symptoms less of the high altitude, because high altitude sickness is basically when you go to very high altitude in the mountains, and then your basically your body gets less oxygen in the blood, right? So you should, yeah, it doesn't happen that fast, but if you go over around 2,600 or 2,800 meters above sea level, you can start to feel like that the oxygen is a bit more, yeah, you can feel you are not that used maybe to that, right? Especially if you live on the seaside. And if you go to like 4 or 5,000 meters, then you can really feel like symptoms of like a headache, for example. And some people, yeah, experience it worse, others not really, so depends. So there's like travel reportage. So for example, with the high altitude, I could cover my own experience, give some interview like an expert that talks like what you can do against high altitude sickness, like a doctor, for example, cover some place where you can, for example, escape from Cusco to not have the symptoms. So it's also possible to make a whole travel reportage about the topic. So yeah, like what is travel reporting, right? So also good to know with travel reportage, travel reporting basically. It's like yeah, journalistic approach that's like grounded in facts, right? So it needs to be a real story. Often includes like interviews, so you can interview someone, like I said, right? The history, for example, how people used to heal high altitude sickness like 100 years ago, or how they do it now, cultural context. So that's more like the journalistic style. Because, for example, a travel vlogger, he would just go with the camera, just document it, just talk a little bit about it, but without any like pre-trip research or like sources, or maybe without interviews. So that's a bit the difference between a travel journalist and a travel vlogger. Travel blogger will focus mainly on their own experience, a bit less on the information and the facts and the history and the sources. So that's also a difference. And a travel writer would maybe write a fiction story, like an ebook, right? That's not fact based. So a travel journalist always needs to work fact based, basically. But still, of course, you are welcome to write also like a fiction ebook or have your travel blog. That's also good to do it as a travel journalist, but it's like a different writing style or documenting style. Human element. So usually as travel journalists, we try to find, yeah, what I said earlier about the challenges of people, to document their life and their perspectives, how the people think about different things. Critical lens, it's good to be also critical as a travel journalist. So if you get invited on a press trip, yeah, it's also good to show the real colors of a company, right? Of course, it's not good to like talk like, let's say, bad things about them, because then they will probably not invite you. But on the other side, yeah, you are a travel journalist, so you need to be objective. But yeah, in the practice, you can see it a bit in the US, what happened, like some journalists were critical about Trump, and now they don't have access to the Oval Office. But yeah, in my opinion, I think as a travel journalist, it's always good to be like objective, try to come up for yourself. And it helps if you have like your own website, because you can always publish there your stories, right? You have then the freedom of speech. Further, like immersive storytelling. So when you tell a story, right, for your travel reportage, basically, then you can use an art, like I would say more like a technique, basically, as a travel journalist. So when I was doing like a course from National Geographic, they dived very deep on that. So it's called immersive storytelling. So that's basically you try to make a picture of like a situation of a place by using sensory details. That means like your senses, right? So it can be like, for example, the smell of a place, the touch of the texture of the wood, right? It can be like the taste of the food, that it's like melting in your mouth, right? It can be the vibrant colors, like in the mountains of Peru, of the texture, right, of the people that wear, for example. So you try to be very like expressive, like basically like you take a picture, right? And yeah, you try to make a story, right? You try to talk more with images, or to write more by describing those like sensory details. So it's called immersive storytelling. We will practice later also a bit with that. So for example, with immersive storytelling, like in general with a travel reportage, here's just like a small example how you can start like a travel reportage. So I wrote one time like an article about Dia de Muertos for travel bloggers in Oaxaca. So I was basically focusing on promoting like this place for like travel bloggers so they can go there and find stories. So you can see we have the title. It needs to be attention grabbing. So if you hear like Dia de Muertos, it sounds already like, oh, that's interesting. Like the Day of the Dead, right? We have the location as well as it's also good for Google to find your story. So people can find it with keyword search. After the title, we have the first sentence basically. So that needs to be like a hook, right? You need to grab the attention. So the people will read it instead scrolling like TikTok, for example, right? So you can start with that kind of like what we had before, immersive storytelling. You can say like eating sugar skulls, drinking mezcal, and dancing on the graveyards. I can imagine you get already a picture of it, right? Like eating a skull, right? Drinking mezcal, so that's kind of like a tequila in Mexico, like a bottle, this dusty bottle of tequila, dancing on the graveyard. You can maybe see those Mexican people like with those colorful hats dancing on their graveyards of their ancestors while drinking mezcal. So that gives a bit kind of like a visualization, right, to people, that immersive storytelling. And the first sentence gives you the hook, right, to capture your reader. So he wants to read further. So you hook the person, right, with the first sentence, so they want to read further. You just arrived as a travel journalist for Dia de Muertos in Oaxaca. So now you get a bit more information, like, oh, okay, it's for travel journalists that want to experience the Dia de Muertos in Oaxaca. So nowadays I write, for example, travel blog posts. Usually a bit, I try to put the alineas very short because people lose their attention fast. Because with the reels and with the fast media like TikTok, Instagram reels, that's why I always try to also like let people digest the travel blog post. So like 4 sentences, another 4 sentences, and maybe if you kept already know that the people like stay for a longer time, then you can make longer sentences. So for example, here, second sentence, the Mexican city is decorated with skeletons and orange flowers. Here's another like example of like immersive storytelling. The aroma of pan de muertos, sweet bread, hangs around bakeries. So you can already smell that kind of aroma from a bakery, right? When you cross the corner, you can smell the bread already, right? The sweet bread from the bakery. On every corner, the doors of mezcalerias are wide open. It's time to step inside for some story hunting. So it sounds already like an adventure. So that's also like a trigger. So basically, it's like a trigger so that people go to another alinea, right, to read more of that story. So that's a bit how you can start a travel reportage, and in general, like a travel blog post or like a story. So later, of course, you can add also like some quotes of people that you interview, of people that you speak with. So it can be from like the people that serve the chocolate from Oaxaca, or like prepare some maybe like the sugar skulls, for example, on the local market. So that's a bit like an example. We will practice later as well. So yeah, so that's a bit like the travel reportage style, how it looks like. And today we will do like a small challenge. So basically we will write like a lead. Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's immersive storytelling. It's a very interesting form of like writing because basically the main thing what you need to think about is to open like your sensory details. So that means like your hearing, your smell, your taste, right? When you taste something, your feeling, texture, and also like your eyes by catching like different details to be very like aware, especially as a photographer, for example, that you're aware like, yeah, what should you capture? Which details, like the texture of someone's dress, maybe, or like the texture of the wood of the, for example, here I took this picture, for example, in Ecuador in the Amazon jungle. As you can see, like it's like an item, right? It's like a mall that blends, yeah, blends the coffee beans, or no, cacao beans. I think those are, yeah, those are cacao beans. So it basically like blends them, right? And as you can see, like there is like smoke coming like from behind, right? So I captured that because it looks kind of like as an object, but still it makes it alive because of the smoke. So it seems like it's an object, like a machine that works hard because the smoke is around her, and you can see the fresh like cacao beans, fresh roasted. You can almost feel that they are like hot, because when yeah, when you put it like on the fire, then they are like hot, so it gives that kind of like feeling of that the object is alive, right? What's very difficult to create, actually, to make objects alive, because usually people like to look at people, right? That gives us usually kind of like a feeling of like, oh, that's interesting. But you can do that with objects as well. You can make objects alive. So yeah, immersive storytelling is basically using like your five senses. Sometimes what I do as well is using, for example, like things like more like not really senses, but like feelings. Like for example, like I felt my heart beating, like I felt my heart beating faster, or I got goosebumps, right? Or I got like when I ate the ice cream, I got like a brain freeze, for example, right? So also that kind of sensory details can be very interesting. So yeah, for today, we'll do like a small challenge. We will write like not a whole reportage, that will be like homework. So basically homework will be to write your own reportage. It can be short for the first time, so no worries. If you love to write, you can make it long. If you are more into like audio, videography, or photography, you can make it also based on pictures, or a documentary on YouTube, short story on Reel, or even a podcast, like an interview with someone. So that's also totally fine. And if you are more into like writing, then you can use a bit the style that we did, for example. So it will be like a travel up reportage about your trip. Can be abroad. And with abroad, I mean, if you didn't go out of your country, it can be also like other city. If you never went out of your city, it can be also like just a different neighborhood, right? Something that you found very unique, maybe like a secret bakery, restaurant, or something that happened, or some history, maybe, or challenges of local people. So try to find your unique angle. So that's like the homework. And for now, what we will practice with is the first couple of sentences. So that's basically here, right? So you can just write like 3 sentences, maybe 3 to 4, 3 to 5, let's say. I would not recommend to make it longer. Of course, for a travel magazine, it can be longer because people buy it already to read it. If I look now into a travel magazine, I can see they make the leads very long, but I know people lose a lot of attention nowadays. So I would recommend to, when you have a travel blog, try to make the leads like short, right? Like here, for example, I did like in basically in 2 sentences only, right? Eating sugar skulls, drinking mezcal, and dancing on the graveyard. On the graveyard, you just arrived as a travel journalist for Dia de Muertos, right? In Oaxaca. So give also information. But in the beginning, it's not important to give a lot of information. You just need to catch people in the middle of action. That's also one trick that you can use, like in action directly. So you start directly with the action, or indeed with immersive storytelling. So that's basically trying to capture the senses of the people, right? So this is homework, travel reportage. Then you can upload it on school on the platform. You can just publish it there and we can check it. Also, I have some connections, like there's kind of a newsletter magazine Beyond Borders. The audience is like digital nomads. So if someone has a story, something related to digital nomads, I can always ask their editorial team if they would like to publish it. So maybe you can have your first publication. But first, it's important you upload it inside the platform. We can check it, we can see if it's good enough to like publish it also in different media. And if not, then at least still you can get like feedback from like your students. You can use it for your own travel blog or make a video about that. So you have a lot of opportunities with that. So for today, we will just start like with the leads. And here you can also see a bit about the pitching, right? Like some big publications, but I always recommend to start with the smaller ones, like with that newsletter magazine, for example, that I mentioned. So we will do now a small like assignment, and that's actually like writing a lead. So for now, I will stop the recording. So like other students that miss it, they can like watch it back. And yeah, we can I can give also for others like feedback later using the text inside the school platform that we have. So thank you for watching, students that didn't join. I will just close the recording so we can have also some privacy to discuss like your leads. Let me check. Need to stop the recording somehow. Stop the share. One moment.